All right. I think we're live here.
We're live.
I know there's going to be a little bit of a delay, so we might have a minute of nothing coming through just yet. We're just running this on a different platform. I couldn't seem to get Facebook to work. I didn't want to detect my camera. So, anyways, if you guys didn't know, this is Alicia, also known as AJ, also known as the Queen of Supercharged Offers. Oh my gosh.
That's a new one, Jesse. The Queen of Supercharged Offers. I haven't heard that one before, but I'll take it. Being that I'm Australian and part of the English culture of queens and stuff, that kind of sits well.
There we go. Well, we're here to hang out because I recently did a podcast with Alicia, and sorry, my chair is just squeaking so much here. But
That's
yeah,
okay. I've got a little dog behind me that might start snoring, so that might get picked up too.
all good. So yeah, we're here to answer questions, and we're just here to hang out for the next little while here. So if you guys have any questions, feel free. If it seems like people are joining us live right now, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it off here. If you've heard the episode with Alicia, if you have anything in specific you want to ask about, you know, feel free to do so, or anything in general. We'd love to sort of hop on here and answer questions. But the last
Yeah.
episode that we had with Alicia, we sort of spent some time talking about websites and capturing leads and branding. And all things sort of related to, especially on the marketing side, on the acquisition side of things. We got a chance to talk a lot about that. But
We did. And the thing I think that I often say this to people, Jesse, and it seems to resonate, and it's the analogy that whilst we all do our due diligence on properties, your sellers are actually doing due diligence on you. So having that online presence, especially folks, if you can think through the lens of or be in the shoes of your seller, right? Your seller might have a problem property. They might have tried to sell it before without any luck. Maybe someone else has had them under contract and they didn't close. Like maybe they're just searching for the right person to help them out with their property. So sometimes they will be checking on you, and that
yeah,
online presence does make a difference.
totally. I mean, how many times have you heard of this, Alicia? Like they decide to work with them only because they had a website, or they just came off a lot more professional. I mean, this is something that I hear over and over.
100%, Jesse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or there was something on that on that website that just captured their attention, like something that was akin to the situation that they're in or the property that they've got. More and more now, guys, we're actually filming like case studies for our customers. That on their websites they can put, here's a bunch of properties that we've done in the past. Here was the problem. Here was the solution that we came up with for the seller, and here was the outcome. So putting those things in front of people is really good, because if they can see themselves selling to you because they've got that trust and credibility,
yeah.
it does go a long way. We've got a question that's come up.
Yes, let's read it out here. And I think this is a perfect question for you. And sorry, we're on a platform that doesn't show us the name of who asked that. So if you guys want to just also start with your name, if you want us to know who you are, it just says Facebook user to us. But question asked here, and I think this is going to be specific for you, Alicia. I know you're going to have a great answer for this. What do you guys use for your list service looking to generate vacant land leads?
Great question. So let me start by saying that there's lots of list providers out there. They're not all the same. And interestingly enough, I don't know, Jesse, I know you and I have spoken about this before, but I had a really good conversation with Jarrett Barnes about this, that not all data is the same. So just before I talk about list providers, let's just unpack a little bit about how data works in the United States when it comes to property data. So number one, folks, is we always know that the county is the source of truth. Now, every county is different with their administration skills and their record keeping and their updates, right? So, but the county is always the source of truth. What happens is each county releases their data for public consumption. Now, there's two things here to think about, folks, with public consumption. Number one, you can go direct onto a county site and consume their data. You can look at records, download information, etc. That's kind of the public access, right? Number two, though, is when it's released for public consumption and resale. And what that means is each county sends out their recorder files, their data files, all this information to these data wholesalers around the US. Now, these data wholesalers, none of you listening would have access to. They're big companies. They aggregate data, they pull data from different sources, they package it up. Different sources being they might incorporate FEMA data or demographic data, things like that. They package it up and then they on-sell that in various ways, shapes, and forms to the likes of a data tree, for example, right? So as a consumer, you go onto Datatree or any other list provider, you put in your criteria and it spits you information. But what you need to recognize is that's gone through all these different processes, and there's different times in those processes before it gets to you. Now, if the list provider that you're buying from only updates their data every quarter, or if they only get a download to look at change of addresses and stuff for people in the data like once a month, it's highly likely that some of your data will be out of date. So making sure that you choose a company that has access to all properties, that cleanses their data and updates and pulls their data daily, if not weekly at a minimum, and make sure that they've got a lot of different processes in place to verify that data, because it's not all the same, folks. That's a long answer to the question, but in terms of the list that we use our own. As Jesse knows, we've actually got our own data warehouse. So those big companies that I talked about before, that aggregate the data and on-sell it, we've actually got a direct replica of their exact data warehouse. It's huge. It's housed in the cloud. We go in daily and pull data. So we've got our own data source, but there's lots out there. And for whoever asked that question, if you're wanting to generate vacant land leads, not a problem. Book a call with me. Let's talk about what you need from a data perspective. And the reason why we don't just provide list people is a lot of folks will download their data and still look at it, don't they, Jesse, and go, now what do I do? Like, there's all this data. Now how do I treat it? So we have the done for you service, folks, whoever asked that question, that will download it, scrub it, cleanse it, parse it, do national change of address lookup. We'll do a whole bunch of stuff to get your data, the ultimate list that you're looking for, and data that's as clean as possible.
I know that Alicia has a great team there, and if you guys want to learn a little bit more about their data and about their mailing and their marketing, make sure you do. Like the best place to probably contact you is, I guess, through Facebook, since we're on Facebook already, or you could go to Supercharged Offers.
Message me on Facebook. Yep, go to superchargedoffers.com or just email me. So alicia@superchargedoffers.com. Any of those means, guys, I'll definitely be here to help out.
Yeah. So there's tons of data list providers as well. There's some of the generic ones. The ones that I typically hear are, other than Supercharged Offers, I hear Data Tree. I hear, Price, who is a reseller of Data Tree. You have Property Radar, which I used to use a long time ago. There's tons out there, and I think, like Alicia said, you really want to look into how fresh is that data a lot of times as well. So
always ask them. So here's a really good example for anyone listening, and we had this only a couple of months ago with a customer. So I mentioned that not all data is the same. Equally, each county and how they release their data is also not the same. So you might have one county that releases their data every quarter. They send out their data roll to all of the big warehouses out there that consume that data and on-sell that data. Every quarter, every month, that's fantastic. Believe it or not, folks, there are actually some counties that haven't released their data in years. Years, which might sound surprising, right? So you can go onto the county site and the record will be good, but then you go to a data provider and you download it and you're like, why is that different? So one thing that we always look at when we're downloading our data is what we call the currency of the data. Now, I don't mean currency as in money. I mean currency as in time. How current is that data? We had a county that we downloaded for someone a while ago, Jesse. Have a guess how old the data was?
I have no idea. Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
3 years.
Wow.
3 years.
Wow.
So that tells that, I always say data tells a story.
Yeah.
What do you think the story is about that county if they haven't released their data for public consumption for 3 years? It's probably fair to say that county might not be that great at record keeping.
Right.
They're probably not a forward-thinking county in terms of how they deal with things. That might also create opportunity, right? But one thing that we're always going to say to our customers, we'll actually go back to them, and we did in this case, and we said, the data's no good. You can go and buy this data elsewhere, but it will be old, which means, think about if you mailed that list, Jesse. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh my gosh. All that money spent
down the drain.
Yeah.
So you're going to get return mail. You're going to get people calling you saying that person's died, or you're going to get people calling you saying we sold that property 2 years ago. It's going to literally waste your marketing spend. So one thing, folks, when you are looking at data, always ask, when was the last time this data was refreshed? How old is it? Where's the source of the data? Because it's not all the same, folks. It really isn't.
Is it easy to tell how old data is from the county? No.
Nope. So, well, the county, so if you go onto the county site, it should always be relatively updated, right? Now, they might, if a property sells, so if I sell a property tomorrow in one county, that might get recorded next week.
Right.
In a county two steps over, I might sell a property today, and that might not get recorded in the county for like 3 or 4 months. So sometimes there is this lag in how data is managed in each county. But you can generally think that when you go onto a county site, the data is going to be relatively up to date because it's in their best interest to keep that up to date. However, when you pull data from a data source, it often will not tell you how old that data is or when's the last time it was refreshed or updated.
Right.
Interesting, isn't it?
It is. I love how you have so much insight into how data works.
And this is what I love about this chat, Jesse, and this question is a lot of people would download information and then, blame the data source or the marketing didn't work or, I got that list from that place and I got all this return mail and things like that. Sometimes it's not about blaming that. It's about really just asking better questions, because if you knew how old the data was or when it was last refreshed, then you could make some decisions around what you do with that.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Scott, thanks for the question there.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, if you guys have any other questions, please make sure you drop it in wherever you're joining us from. I think we're also streaming this live on YouTube as well. Great. It sounds like somebody wants to check it out. Again, the website that you can sort of look Alicia up and her services if you head over to Supercharged Offers or just add her as a Facebook friend here, and I'm sure she's more than happy to have a chat with you. One thing that I just got off a call earlier, and I've been, a few of them were from the wholesaling, the fix and flips, the single family home world. I know we got to talk a little about that on the podcast too, but I'm sure there's a few people here that are listening that are coming from that same world or are going to be watching this later. Tell us a little bit about that again. I just find that so intriguing, the kind of challenges you work through, because a lot of people are getting turned on to land here, but they're still not sure. They might have some hesitancy. One of the things I love about land is not only just the model itself, but the community itself is just so different. That's one thing that I've noticed like hugely. When I came into
Me
land,
too, Jesse. Yeah.
I mean, when I came into house, that was my first time was on Bigger Pockets. And I just remembered everybody seems overly helpful and a little bit suspicious here. And then lo and behold, I realized people are trying to sell me snake oil left and right here. But there's something to be said about the land space and the land community. I mean, what was that journey like for yourself, Alicia? Can you sort of tell us what it was like?
Yeah, well, when we were doing houses, so keep in mind, folks, when we were doing some fix and flips and houses, this is nearly 8 years ago, which is crazy, Jesse. It doesn't feel like that long ago at all. But back then the market wasn't so saturated. But the shift that we saw is, as soon as all those television shows started on HGTV, everybody wanted to fix and flip houses, right? So in a very short space of time, we saw, and this is only what we experienced, right? So I'm not speaking on behalf of everybody that does houses. And by all means, we've got a lot of customers that do houses with success. And I know a lot of people that wholesale and fix and flip with success for houses. So it's not the same for everyone.
Sure.
But we certainly noticed this huge increase in people wanting to do houses, which really saturated the market for finding deals, finding contractors, keeping contractors, doing all of this stuff. And very quickly, we noticed, I'm talking in a space of months, we just noticed how much more difficult it was to find those deals, get them under contract. We were even losing workers on site. We had contracting teams in place to help with our fix and flips. They were getting poached by other wholesalers doing stuff and other rehabbers. So it became really competitive. And I think what that also felt like then is that people started to self-protect. They were like, this is my deal, don't get involved, or this is my county and my zip codes that I'm working, step out. And so that's the feeling that was there. fast forward and we switched to vacant land, it was the total opposite. It was like, we all know in the vacant land space that there is more than enough deals out there for all of us. There's people in this game that are what I would call the hobbyists. They're doing one deal every couple of months. They're just doing it part-time. They're doing some marketing here and there. And there's people like you guys and us and a lot of people that we're connected with, Jesse. This is their business and everything in between. But there's more than enough deals to go around. Is the market busier at the moment? Yeah, it is. But markets all go through cycles.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'm certainly happy that we switched, and we've got some customers that still do both. They still do houses, they still do vacant land. That's okay.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely is a lot more competitive. And if I think about the numbers, and again, this is going to be different for every state and county, but to get a house under contract, on average, you're looking at about 3,000 to 4,000 touch points. So whether that be a letter, a cold call, or a combination of both, you're looking at about 3,000 to 4,000 touch points before you're likely to get a deal. Probably more in more popular areas, right? Vacant land, you're looking at 1,500 to 2,000 on average.
Can you explain that a little bit? What do you mean by touch points? 3,000 to 4,000 touch points.
Contacts, yeah. So if you're sending out 3,000 to 4,000 letters, let's say, or maybe you're doing 2,000 letters, 2,000 cold calls, could be a combination of both, right? Because you can market in very different ways. But you got to get in front of people, at least 4,000 times before you're probably going to get a yes for single family homes. Probably more so at the moment, I'd say.
Okay. And thanks for sharing that. I know a lot of people will be jotting notes on that. I got asked this earlier this week, but how often, you're in the mail space and the marketing space as well. So how often would you suggest somebody to actually remail a property owner, and what's the frequency, or should they be tapping into multiple channels to reach out to them? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question, Jesse. Definitely multiple channels. And the reason why I say this, folks, and probably people listening have heard me say this before, but you need to be everywhere all the time now. And your audience is also everywhere all the time. So our audience being our sellers, they are now people in their 80s and 90s that maybe are sitting on intergenerational land that they've had for years, or maybe something that they'd planned to build on and retire and it just hasn't happened, all the way down to people in their 20s and 30s that have maybe either inherited land or they had land as part of a marriage and it's now going through divorce, and everything in the middle. So when you think about that and that demographic, we're dealing with people now that are old, young, everything in between. So we're dealing with digital nomads. We're dealing with old school ways of doing business. That means for us as real estate investors, we need to be marketing in all of those different channels to attract the most likelihood of a conversation, right? So the other thing is timing. So demographic and market is one thing, and making sure we're being omni-channel. Omni-channel, when I say that, Jesse, I'm talking online and offline. So offline being your direct mail, online being your ads, your website, your socials, offline being cold calling, things like that. Then that's the demographic and the channels, but touch points. If we think about this from a marketing perspective, the statistics in a general marketing sense say that you should get in touch with your audience somewhere between 7 to 13 times before they convert. Now that's at a general consumer level. So when we as humans buy products, we often very unconsciously, because it's not like we go, I've seen that 7 times, I'm ready to buy, ready to sell, that's not how it happens. But our brain is seeing different things, and all of a sudden we start to think about it. And it's like, oh yeah, maybe I do need that thing that keeps coming up on Facebook for me. So it's the same. We're talking here from a place of psychology. 7 to 13 touch points is what you really need. So if you're doing an omni-channel presence, that's great because you'll get those touch points higher. But from a mailing perspective, for the counties that we have done a lot over the years, because we've got some counties that we've been working for 6-7 years now, we tend to mail them minimum every 6 months. Now that's a minimum. If you're in a county that you're currently doing deals in and you've got good seller activity, good buyer activity, keep farming that county. Don't just jump to the next one. And what do I mean by farming? Farming, like reaping the rewards, right? Picking the fruit off the trees. If we think about that analogy of picking fruit off trees, The one thing as to when that fruit is ready to be picked is timing. Fruit at the top of the trees that's getting the sun, ready to be picked
Right.
now. Fruit down the bottom might not be ready to pick for another month.
Right.
So if we think about this from a seller's perspective, every deal that we've all done, the one thing that is in there, yes, the offer has got to be good, but the other thing is timing. You might reach out to someone this month and they go, that's great, I'm not ready to sell.
Right.
In 2 or 3 months' time, if you reach out to them again with maybe a different type of mailer, so when we're doing multiple touch points, it's not the same letter. We might do a handwritten postcard followed by a neutral letter, followed the last one by a blind offer. It might be a combination of things that we're doing. Because you might get in touch with them in 2 or 3 months' time.
Right.
All of a sudden, there's an illness in the family,
Yeah.
there's a divorce happening, grandkids are going off to college. All of these things are happening. And now they're like, you know what? Yeah, I could actually get rid of that land and use that money. So it's all different, but everyone's got to have their one thing that we focus on, Jesse, is strategy. Like, let's just think about what is the outcome you're looking for and your budget as well. And now let's reverse engineer your strategy. Are we going to do 2 touch points, 3 touch points? Over what time frame? Is it going to be a combination of a neutral letter and a postcard that's handwritten? Is it going to be a combination of a neutral letter and a cold call?
Right.
Like, what is the strategy based upon your data? So data drives strategy, and based upon your budget.
Yeah. We've got a question here from John here, actually tying into what we're talking about right now. Can you discuss, it's a kind of an open-ended question, a neutral versus a blind versus postcards. I think it's John, it's a little bit of an open-ended question, but I'm sure you have some
I can take that though. Let's go with that. Thanks, John. Great question. So here's the thing with different mailing strategies, folks. You've got to let your data inform your mailing strategy. So let me give you an example. We might be going after, let's say, I'm just going to grab Polk County, Florida. We've got a deal we're working on there at the moment. So we might pull the data. We've done that county many times, so we know what we want to do as an offer strategy. So I guess feedback number 1, if you're going after new areas that you've never done before, sometimes question if a blind offer is the right thing to do, because I always say, do some neutral letters or postcards and test the area first. Get a sense of what sellers are wanting to do, what buyers are wanting to do, get to know the areas, then turn up the volume with blind offers. However, going back to mailing strategy as well. So Polk County, Florida, we're going to pull all the data that we want to market to. We're then going to pull a sales report. Again, coming back to our data, we have these, we're in the process of redoing them at the moment, but we do these sales reports that allow us to get our comps down to a census tract level en masse, so doing comps en masse. We're then looking at some analysis in that data, Jesse, to let us know, out of all the properties we want to mail to, what are the ones that we're confident that there's enough activity going on around it and enough comps going on around it, and those comps have got rules around them, by the way, as to what's acceptable or not, that we're confident with going out with a blind offer. And what we often find is, let's just say that there's 70% of the data that's a good match, and we go, great, well, let's send out a blind offer or a range offer to those properties because we're confident that we're close enough. Here's the other thing with blind offers, folks. It is not about getting the offer perfect. It's not. It's about putting something in front of the seller that's going to entertain them enough that they're willing to pick up the phone and say, hey, you've got my attention.
Yes.
I want to negotiate. I'm interested. Or go jump in the lake. And hopefully, if you're a good negotiator, you'll be able to turn them around on that call and talk to them. So don't think blind offers is about skipping stuff. It's not. So if we get that data and 70% says, yep, got great comps, go for it. What do we do with the other 30%? We don't get rid of it, but we might send out a postcard or a neutral letter to those other 30% because we don't want to put an offer in front of them that the data doesn't tell us that it's got the right stuff.
Gotcha.
So let your data drive your strategy.
I love it.
It's really important distinction, folks.
Awesome. John, thanks for a question there. Alicia, thanks for answering that. I've got time for one more question. I'd actually got a message directly from Nathan. My assistant is trying to feed this to me at the same time. So it's not on here, but I'm going to just read it. If I can just sort of...
You're welcome, John.
I'm going to maybe paste it in here. Oh, I can't. Oh, well. Well, he says here, Alicia, I want to talk about websites. I'm mainly interested in the SEO and most effective way to list high and stay up there.
So is he talking acquisitions or dispositions? So list high and stay up there tells me a
Yeah.
little bit more about dispo.
Well, maybe some generalized tips on both the acquisition and disposition. I know that's
Yeah.
sort of hard
Okay.
to
So
do, but
we can both talk to that, Jesse. Certainly our last podcast went into a lot about websites and
yeah.
branding and being,
Mhm.
ever present. So from an SEO perspective, so for those listening, SEO is search engine optimization. This is about how do people find you more easily so that you're not just a beautiful online brochure, but you've got to have some stuff on there. Good SEO, folks. So number one starts with the right keywords. So there's two ways of doing SEO. There's organic SEO and then there's paid SEO. So with organic SEO, you want to start to get ranking over time. There's things that you can do about that, such as the right keywords. So knowing what keywords are trending and tracking and what people are doing with pay-per-click, using those keywords in your headings, your subheadings, your meta tags, your images on your page, any additional content that you put on your page. All of these little tips and tricks are really important. You've got to make sure these days that your website has a disclaimer, privacy, and T's and C's pages. If you don't have that, Google won't even look at you. And again, they need to be written in the right way and coded in the right way that Google's AI is going to go tick. Yep, that looks pretty good. Third thing, content. You've got to have a multitude of content that Google looks at and goes, yeah, that content's always changing or being downloaded or looked at. Videos, ebooks, how-to guides, interviews, integrations to your socials, things like that people can interact. So being able to click on things and go through stuff, all of that stuff makes a difference. Then you've obviously got the positioning yourself as an expert. So SEO can also be about blog writing. So organic SEO, the best way to start organic SEO is by writing blogs and getting your content out. Google loves to see new content being produced, right? Jesse's nodding as I'm saying this.
Yeah, yeah,
However, you don't need to be a blog writer these days, folks. So I know we have a service and we've got someone on our team who's a professional writer. So we would simply know what words we're wanting to rank for. So what are the top 50 words or 100 words we want to rank for? What's the topics and writing that we need to do around that? And then it's making sure that your blogs are written in the right way, posted in the right way, and formatted in the right way with all those things I said before, keywords, meta tags, all that stuff, and then syndicated in the right way. So a lot of people will have a blog on their page that is just on one page. No. What you want to do when you're writing a blog, folks, is yes, have a blog page that's got them all, but when I click on that blog, it opens up as a new page. Because then what you start to see from a site map perspective, and I'm getting a bit technical here, but site maps is where Google goes, oh, this website's got 100 pages on it. That must have some good stuff. Versus this website's just 2 pages and nothing's ever changing. So it does look for those things. So from an acquisition side, there's a lot of different strategies you can do. Jesse, disposition, that's your game.
I think at the end of the day, I'm no SEO expert, and one of the things about SEOs is it is so hard to keep up with what's going on, especially with Google. I mean, we're talking even on a weekly basis. The thing is changing so
Almost daily.
quickly, and to think that you're going to game it on the short term with quick fixes is just not the reality of things. Um,
Well said, Jesse.
I
You
think
got to have a really well-defined strategy, folks, and you've got to be willing to let that strategy execute for like 6 to 12 months minimum.
I think at a very, very minimum,
Yeah.
it takes so much. I say the best rule of thumb, if you want sort of an evergreen rule, is to produce genuine content. Uh, Again, gaming is something that you're just going to end up in this sort of back and forth with the way that the way that the algorithm works. It's just an impossible game to keep up with, I say.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of basics you can be doing that Alicia has mentioned, but it does go beyond that. And genuine content, I think, is the way to go. I really don't have a true insight that is actionable. This is a long-term game. This is something that you're going to have to be
Not an
creative.
overnight fix, folks.
No,
I
absolutely
think
not.
a lot of people think, oh, I'll get a great website and overnight it'll get traffic. No, it
Yeah,
does take time, and it's an integration of all those channels I mentioned earlier. So
yeah,
if you are sending out direct mail, what's your call to action to get someone to go to your website and check you out?
yeah,
Are you putting QR codes on all of your letters, your postcards,
yeah.
stuff that you're getting out there? So how easy are you making it for people to actually find you and interact with you? All of that stuff contributes to your search engine optimization. Because if
Totally.
people aren't looking you up or clicking on you, Google's going, oh, no one's interested. So
Yeah.
it is definitely, I'm with you, Jesse. It's a long-term game and there's lots of moving parts.
There's tons of moving parts. I don't think we'll be able to address all that. In fact, I don't even have the knowledge for all of that. So
And
also,
neither do I. I've got a lot of knowledge on it, but I
yeah,
agree with you. I've got a team behind me that is experts in this stuff
yeah.
because that's what they do day in, day out.
Awesome. Well, hey, Nathan, if you wanted to get in touch with Alicia, I know she's amazing with websites as well. So you can get in touch with her, and I'm sure she'll be more than happy to help you out.
Yeah.
Guys, Alicia, I want to first of all thank you for your time. You're traveling across America right now, so let the folks know. Can they find you in any of the cities you're going to be visiting
Yeah,
the next 2 weeks
that's
here?
fine. Yeah, thanks, Jesse. I always love having a talk with you, Jesse. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me on. Currently in Phoenix, folks, until next Tuesday. I'm getting initiated to my first college football game this Thursday night, which I'm excited about.
Awesome.
So then next Tuesday, we're flying to Dallas. We'll be at Investor Fuel in Dallas. So we'll be at a conference over there. Then we're going to, we'll be in Dallas for about a week and a half. Then we're in Houston for a couple of weeks, folks. So Houston, I'll be at Tim Mai's Hero Capital Raising Summit Conference. Then we're going to the Family Mastermind in Tampa. So we'll be in Tampa and surrounding areas for a couple of weeks and heading back home on October 7th. So, and then we'll be back again. So yeah, we're always over here for a big chunks at a time.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, thanks so much for listening in. And if you haven't heard my interview with Alicia on the podcast, that's the Wine Investing Business Secrets podcast. That is episode number 93. That just launched earlier, I think late last week or earlier this week here. So you can catch that. And I'll be doing these once every other week type of thing with the guests that I have on. So Alicia, thank you so much for hopping on here on the Pebble Hangout with me.
Yeah, love it. Thanks so much. And thanks for all your questions, folks.
Absolutely. Thanks. Bye, guys.